Hi, I'm Chef Lynn. Welcome to the Flavor Secrets Kitchen. Today we're going to be making a pumpkin roll cake. It can also be called a jelly roll cake because you can fill the middle with jelly if you like instead of frosting, although we'll be using frosting today. This is actually a really old Libby's Company recipe, but I don't see people making it anymore. And I don't really understand why, because it's a great recipe. You can make it ahead, you could freeze it. It's fun to make with kids because it's not made in the traditional way that a cake is normally made. And it's great for kids' birthday parties, or even for adult birthday parties too, why not? All right, so let's get started. The first thing we have to do is prepare the pan. As you can see, I've got here a jelly roll pan. This is the old name for it because it used to be you could only buy these kind of pans to make this specific kind of cake. Now it's pretty commonly used as a cookie sheet also, a cookie sheet with sides. That's basically all it is. So I've got a little bit of soft butter here and a paper towel, and all I'm going to do is rub this pan with butter. Make sure you go up the sides a little bit too, and cover the whole pan very lightly. I'm only using about half of my pat of butter here because the next thing I want to do is put a piece of wax paper on the top of this. And it must be wax paper. Don't use any other kind of baking paper or parchment paper. I'm going to try and make it just about the same length as this jelly roll pan. And the reason you can't use other kinds of paper is because the wax paper will get really soft, and we're actually going to roll this cake, so the wax paper will roll right up with it. If you have a stiffer kind of paper like parchment paper or something like that, it won't work. So now I'm also going to take the rest of this butter that's on the paper towel and put it right on top of the wax paper also. This is important for the cake to release, so make sure you get it covered really well with butter. Okay, next we're going to mix up our cake really quickly. It doesn't have very many ingredients. We're going to start with 3 eggs here, and I'm going to break these into my pan, into my little dish here, not a pan, first, so that I can make sure I don't have any shell in the egg. 1, 2, 3 eggs. You can probably hear the oven in the background. Oh, there's a little tiny piece of shell, so I'll just get that out of there. Okay. Put the eggs in here, and then we'll add 1 whole cup of sugar. This is white granulated sugar. And then we'll turn the mixer on and let that get light and fluffy. Start it slow first, and then take it up a little bit so it's a little bit higher. While that's mixing, I can mix together my dry ingredients. And what I have for the dry ingredients is 3/4 of a cup of AP flour, or all-purpose flour, a pinch of salt, I'm going to leave that up here I guess, and then I want, let's see, what did I say, a 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. So I'll take this, I've got a whole teaspoon here, so I'll take half of it. A 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, that was baking soda, excuse me. So 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, both. And then the recipe calls for a 1/2 teaspoon of cloves, which I find fine, and a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. But I figure if a little bit of cinnamon is good, then a lot is better. So I put a whole teaspoon of cinnamon in there every time I make this. Now what I'll do is just take my whisk here and whisk it together. That's as good as sifting it together. Remember, this is stirring, this is whisking. Alright, then I'll add my pumpkin. This is just regular pumpkin, and you can use fresh pumpkin if you want to. There's no problem with that. Just make sure you cook it first and make sure you puree it really well. But I'm going to use the canned pumpkin today. 2/3 of a cup, so that's 1/3. And then 2/3. That one's heaping just a little bit, but that's okay. A little bit more pumpkin is fine too. Alright, so there's my pumpkin. Let's set this back here out of the way. And again, we'll mix in the pumpkin. So now I've got all of my wet ingredients in there. And always when you're mixing, make sure you lift up the head of the mixer and scrape around the sides of the bowl and down around the punch so that it will all get mixed up evenly and really well. Ooh, this is a beautiful color. I love using pumpkin in dishes. So now that's all mixed. Now all I have to do is add my dry ingredients. and mix them in and we're done. That's all there is to putting this cake together. And you can actually do this much the night before if you want to. So again, now we've added something. So I want to lift up the head of the mixer, make sure I scrape down the sides, and get down around the punt so that everything mixes up really, really well. One more little mix, and then we're good to go. All right, I want to get all of that good stuff out of the bowl. And then I need to rinse this off because we have to use it again. So give me just a second here to rinse this off. I need to use it again for the frosting. And then I can take off my bowl and simply pour this into the pan. Now if you made this without seeing it first, you might panic a little bit because it doesn't look like enough mix to go for this to cover this whole pan. But it does cover it, albeit in a very thin way. Let me just go back here and get rid of this bowl again. And then I'm just going to use my spatula to bring this all the way to the sides of this jelly roll pan. And I'm going to try to get it as even as possible. It's a little bit hard because this batter is very, very thin. So all the way to the edges. And then just take your spatula and kind of go back and forth like this and make it as thin as possible. It's a very thick dough spread thinly on the cookie sheet. And sometimes it works to just kind of drop your pan, but this is so thick that doesn't really work very well. So I'm going to have to just keep going back and forth over it until it gets kind of thin. So make sure the bottom is all covered and that you get all of your mix on there. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is pop this into a preheated 375 degree oven, and we're going to let it bake for only 15 to 16 minutes. Now in my oven, I know it always takes 16 minutes. Ovens are different temperatures. You should probably keep some kind of temperature device in your oven so you can tell if it's actually getting to the temperature that you think it should. Okay, so imagine that this is going in the oven, and now imagine that it's 16 minutes later because I have one coming out of the oven exactly right now. Let me go get it. So I'll set this over here until later, grab my mitt, and now I'm going to check this by touching it. It should be firm and it should spring back to the touch. And guess what? It does. So here's my finished cake. Oops, I forgot to turn off the timer. I don't think we want to listen to that over and over again. Put that timer off. Okay, now what I need to do is to loosen the sides of this cake. And remember, it's very hot, so be careful about touching the sides of the pan. And while it's hot, you can see I've got the wax paper under there and the whole bit. While it's hot, this is easy to do, and you can see how I'm just kind of lifting up this wax paper to make sure that it's all loose. Now if you want to, before you bake this, you can feel free to sprinkle nuts over the top of it, and then those nuts will bake right into it. But of course don't do that if you have a nut allergy or anything like that. Okay, now what I have here is some confectioner's sugar and a very, very thin kitchen towel. This is the cool part of this cake. And if you're doing it with kids, you'll obviously have to do this part yourself because it's pretty hot. Oh my goodness, we have a little visitor. I guess the minute something comes out of the oven that looks good, the little visitors arrive. Oh, there they go. They didn't get a treat. All right, so what I want to do here is take some confectioner's sugar with my fingers and sprinkle it all over the towel. Now if you're going to make this cake ahead, you need to use more confectioner's sugar than if you plan to cool it, unroll it, fill it, and use it that day. But this one is going to sit for a while, so I'm putting quite a lot of confectioner's sugar on it. Now I need my mitts again because this cake is hot. And what I'm going to do is just turn it over right on that confectioner's sugar and it falls right off. I'm sort of walking all over the place here. I hope you're not getting dizzy following me. Okay, now remember we've got this wax paper on here, but for the moment we're going to leave it. And And what we'll do is just close up this towel. I should have put it a little closer to the end, but this will work okay too. And then while it's hot, just start rolling it. You can see how I'm trying to make a really small edge at the beginning. And then I'll just roll this right up. Like that. And I'm pressing a little bit as I roll so that the roll will be tight and stay tight. Okay, so that's how we get it into the roll shape. Now it's still warm, it's easy to handle, it's not real hot, but it's still quite warm. So I want to let it cool in that shape. So I'm just going to set it over here for the moment. And then we'll mix up our frosting. Okay, I've got another mixing bowl back here. And what I have in here so far is 6 tablespoons of butter and just a little teaspoon of vanilla extract. This is the kind I like to use. It's really flavorful. It's called Madagascar Bourbon Pure Vanilla Extract. Make sure you get pure extract and not artificial extract because there's a huge difference in the taste. Okay, then I'm going to add a cup of confectioner's sugar, or powdered sugar as it's often called. And I'm also going to add 8 ounces of cream cheese. This is an organic cream cheese that I like really well. Different brands taste differently. This one is actually called Organic Valley, and it's the one that I think tastes the best. But you can do your own taste test with cream cheese. Now, as I said, if you want to, you can make this a true jelly roll, and you can feel free to fill it with jam. Make it even a little bit healthier, but if you're making a party cake, why not make it a little bit sweet? You can only really eat a small piece of this cake. It's very filling, and you're not going to get that many calories from a very small piece of cake. All right, so let's put this away. Clean up here a little bit, and I'm constantly cleaning up as I go. Okay, now we need our mixing paddle again. So let's hook it on here and turn it on. Slowly first so that the confectioner's sugar won't go all over the kitchen, which it did anyway. You can also take a piece of plastic if you've got a lot of dry ingredients like that and just kind of pull it over the mixing machine. I didn't expect it to do that, so I didn't do that. I didn't add the plastic, but it's easy and you certainly can do that. Again, we've mixed something up here, so we want to make sure we scrape down the sides. And we get down around the punt so that everything gets mixed up equally. As you can see, the vanilla was down in the bottom there. So we'll mix it up a little more. And the other thing that's really important about the frosting is that your ingredients are at room temperature. You can see how really smooth and nice this frosting is, and it's not lumpy because everything was at room temperature. All right, I got my mixing bowl stuck on here. There we go. I was turning it in the wrong direction. Okay, get this mixer out of the way. So we can bring our cake back and I can show you how to frost it. Okay, once again, we'll clean up. Okay, and then we'll get as much of this gorgeous looking frosting out of here as we can. Now at this point, if you want to, you can mix some nuts in your frosting. You can mix some berries like blueberries, blackberries, strawberries. That all tastes really good with pumpkin. You can make the cake with applesauce instead of pumpkin. Use your imagination. You can put raw, well-grated carrot in the cake if you like. And make sure, I'll just take one more check to make sure it's all mixed up really well. And it looks really good. Okay, now we can go back to our cake and see if it's cool enough. This one should probably cool for about a half an hour before you use it, but I just happen to have another one done that I actually made last night. So remember, this cake has great make-ahead components to it. You can see how it got cooler. This one that I made last night, I put nuts in, so that's what this is. And then you can see the confectioner's sugar along the sides. And all I do is just roll this right out. Now here's the crucial point. Don't forget to take off the paper. It doesn't taste good. Don't ask me how I know that. It's really easy to forget because after it cools, it sort of looks like the cake itself. But remember, we put that wax paper on there. Oops. All right, I'm glad this happened because this might happen to you. A little piece came up because I got in a hurry. So I'm just going to patch it back together there. You should do this really slowly if it's been sitting in the refrigerator all night like this one has been. But anyway, that won't matter at all. That'll be in the middle. So here I'm just going to take this frosting, and using a spatula, or you can use an offset cake decorator spatula if you want. That makes it kind of nice and smooth, but it isn't real crucial for this cake. Alright, I think using a spatula is just fine. So I'm going to use all of this frosting. And then try and make it as even as I can and get it all the way out to the edges. Now because I had that little tear in the cake right here, I'm going to roll it up from that end so that that will be in the middle and no one will ever see it. If you don't tell, no one will ever know. Alright, so we'll just bring this out to the edges. And at this point, this is a cake for nut lovers, so I'm going to add some nuts in the middle. Try and make it as smooth as I can. Doop, doop, doop. One last swipe over. It's kind of hard to stop. Okay, now I'm going to take some nuts over here and just sprinkle these on. Alright, and now, as I said, we want to roll it up from this edge. So I'm going to take it, make a really small roll at the beginning, and then keep a little bit of pressure on it, roll it up. See, there's my little doo-doo there. That won't be a problem. Boo-boo. That won't be a problem at all. I'm just going to roll it right up into the middle. And as I said, because this one sat all night, I had a lot of confectioner's sugar on it. So try and roll it up as evenly as you can. And then at this point, we want to take our towel away and grab some plastic wrap. Where did I put that? There it is. Right out where it should be, of course. Grab some plastic wrap, pull out a big piece, and put my roll cake right on it. Okay, this side's just a tiny little bit fatter than the other side, so what I can do is press on the sides like this. And now it's all even. So I'll wrap it in plastic wrap now, as tightly as I can, and then put this in the refrigerator to cool. Make sure it's all even. And now it goes in the refrigerator to cool because we want that frosting to seize up again. We're going to have a lot of cake here to eat today. Feel free to come by and get some. Okay, so we'll clean this up again, and now we'll bring out our finished cake, which has been cooling in the refrigerator. And that's this one. This one has been in the refrigerator just for maybe about a half an hour. Now what have I done with my rag here? Okay, so now we're opening this up, and you can see it's firmer and it's kind of staying together. At this point you can put it on a tray. You can sprinkle it with a little more confectioner's sugar just to make it look more even. And then we've got a plate here that we can use for our final presentation. And what I'm going to do is take a serrated knife, not a straight knife because it'll cut better, and just take off this end, because no matter what you do, this end will end up looking a little bit uneven, and if you just kind of saw through it, then it'll cut better. And then cut however big a piece you want. Normally you can get about 12 pieces out of this cake, but I usually cut them about an inch wide. You can see how nicely it's holding together now because it's been in the refrigerator and the cream cheese has had a chance to firm up. So there's your finished piece of cake. Now all you have to do is decorate it. I like to use berries with this cake. You can also use strawberry flavored cream cheese in the middle if you want to. I keep looking down there because that's where my rag is supposed to be, and I keep putting it back there. But anyway, everybody has days like that. So let's look at our finished piece of cake here and decorate it back there. Okay, now if you have some really pretty strawberries, if it's that time of year, One thing that I like to do is just cut little pieces with a sharp knife like this without going all the way through the end. And then you can fan it out. Pull up that little bit of green stem there, and that looks really pretty with it. You can put it on top or you can put it on the side. I like to put it on the side, and then I also like to slice a few berries just kind of around the plate because the berries taste good and add a lot of wonderful nutrition. Just kind of put them on the plate. You can add a sprig of mint. A sprig of mint is also really pretty, and it can be edible. Remember, whenever you put any herbs or decorations on plates, it's the law that they should be edible. You can stick that there, or you can stick it right in the top, like that. So there's your finished cake. The pumpkin roll cake, or the jelly roll cake as it's often called. Just change the filling at your will. Add nuts, add berries, add any other kind of flavoring for the filling that you like. It's delicious, tasty, easy. You can make it ahead the night before. Please do make it ahead the night before. You can freeze it. You can freeze it before you fill it. You can freeze it after you fill it. It's just the perfect cake. I hope you'll give it a try at home and enjoy it. I'm Chef Lynn from the Flavor Secrets Kitchen.